Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadari. Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamunatiravanachari Yamunatiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari. Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamunatiravanachari Yamunatiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari. Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamunatiravanachari Yamunatiravanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacarya Ashtotarashata Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacarya Ashtotarashata Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktavrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 26, text number 16. Long Sanskrit. I guess I'll just skip the Sanskrit and we can just go for the word for words. Yaha, anyone who. Tu, but. Iha, in this life. Vai, indeed. Raja, a king. Rajapurushaha, a king's man. Va, or. Adandye, unto one not punishable. Dandam, punishment. Pranayati, inflicts. Brāhmaṇe, unto a brāhmana. Va, or. Sharira dandam, corporal punishment. Saha, that person, king or government officer. Papiyan, the most sinful. Narake, in the hell. Amutra, in the next life. Sukaramukhe, named Sukaramukha. Nipatati, falls down. Tatra, there. Ati balai, by very strong assistance of Yamaraj. Vinishpishyamana, being crushed. Avayava, of different parts of whose body. Yatha, like. Eva, certainly. Eha, here. ikshukandha, sugarcane. Arthasvarena, with a pitiable sound. Svanayan, crying. Kuchit, sometimes. Murchitaha, fainted. Kashmalam uppagata, becoming illusioned. Yatha, just like. Eva, indeed. Iha, here. Adrishtadoshaha, one who is not at fault. Uparuddhaha, arrested for punishment. Okay, translation. In his next life, a sinful king or governmental representative who punishes an innocent person or who inflicts corporal punishment upon a brāhmana is taken by the Yamadutas to the hell known as Sukaramukha, where the most powerful assistants of Yamaraj crush him exactly as one crushes sugarcane to squeeze out the juice. The sinful living entity cries very pitiably and faints, just like an innocent man undergoing punishments. This is the result of punishing a faultless person. I'll read text 17. By the arrangement of the Supreme Lord, low-grade living beings like bugs and mosquitoes suck the blood of human beings and other animals. Such insignificant creatures are unaware that their bites are painful to the human being. However, first-class human beings, brāhmaṇas, kṣatriyas, and vaiśyas, are developed in Krishna consciousness. And therefore they know how painful it is to be killed. A human being endowed with knowledge certainly commits sin if he kills or torments insignificant creatures who have no discrimination. The Supreme Lord punishes such a man by putting him into the hell known as Anthakupa, where he is attacked by all the birds and beasts, reptiles, mosquitoes, lice, worms, flies, and any other creatures he tormented during his life. They attack him from all sides, robbing him of the pleasure of sleep. Unable to rest, he constantly wanders about in the darkness. Thus, in Anthakupa, his suffering is just like that of a creature in the lower species. Purport. From this very instructive verse, we learn that animals created by the laws of nature to disturb the human being are not subjected to punishment. Because the human being has developed consciousness, however, he cannot do anything against the principles of varṇāśrama-dharma without being condemned. Krishna states in Bhagavad-gita, cātur-varṇyaṁ mayā sṛṣṭaṁ guṇa-karma-vibhāgaśaḥ. According to the three modes of material nature and the work ascribed to them, the four divisions of human society were created by me. Thus all men should be divided into four classes: brāhmaṇas, kṣatriyas, vaiśyas, and śūdras. And they should act according to their ordained regulations. They cannot deviate from their prescribed rules and regulations. One of these states that they should never trouble any animal, and even those that disturb human beings. Although a tiger is not sinful if he attacks another man and eats its flesh, if a man with developed consciousness does so, he must be punished. In other words, a human being who does not use his developed consciousness, but instead acts like an animal, surely undergoes punishment in many different hells. Om ajñānatimirandasya jñānāñjana-śalakaya chakṣurunmīlitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama sṛṣṭaṁ manamapi shachi putramatra svarupam rupam tasyagrajam urupurim mathurim goshtavatim radha kundam girivaramaho radhika madhavasham prapto yasya pratita kripaya Shri Gurum tam natosmi Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Shri Guru Jnanada Dina Bandho Svananda Datam Karunaika Sindho Vrindavanasina Hitavatara Prasida Radha Pranaya Prachara Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vikasa Swaminiti Namine. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschati Desatarine. Just put on my notes really quick. So in Srimad Bhagavad-gita, there's a verse in the 15th chapter wherein Krishna states, Mamai vamsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatanaha manashashtan indriyani prakritisthani karshati. So Krishna says in this verse that all of the souls in this world, all the jivas in the material world, are mamai vamsho. They're my amshas. They're parts. They're my parts and parcels. And they are struggling in this material world. They're situated in this material world because they're struggling with their minds. And because they're struggling with their minds, they're bound to this material world. They're bound to their material bodies, etc. So the mind, the nature of the mind, the materially conditioned mind, is that actually even the spiritually conditioned mind, or you could say, I guess, the materially unconditioned mind, is that it wants to enjoy pleasure. The mind wants to enjoy some kind of rasa. So in the spiritual world, the unconditioned mind enjoys rasa with Krishna. Krishna's, what's that name for Krishna? Okay, I guess I'm forgetting it. Yeah, I guess I'm forgetting it. But anyway, yes, Krishna enjoys rasa, that's his business. And our business is to assist Krishna in enjoying rasa, and then also in turn we enjoy rasa with him. So it's our nature to enjoy some kind of relationship, some kind of mellow, some kind of, I guess another translation of rasa could be some kind of vibration or mood or something like that. That's what the mind wants to do. But in the material world, the mind, bereft of knowledge of Krishna, bereft of our, I guess, bereft of consciousness of our relationship with Krishna, the mind wants to enjoy some kind of material rasa, because that's all we've got. So the mind wants to enjoy this or that, music, people watch movies and things like that. Get some kind of feel, some kind of mood, some kind of relationship, and also relationships amongst people. They want to enjoy relationship with this person or that person. This person makes me feel this way, this person makes me feel that way. And there's an exchange of energy, there's an exchange of love there that people are searching for. But in this world, this exchange of rasa, it's not very productive. All it does really is bind us further and further to the idea that there can be some kind of happiness in this world. But we hear, of course, time and time again, from Bhagavad-gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, from Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, that there is no happiness in this world. There's no happiness in this world. There's no love in this world. Because love is for Krishna. And happiness, real happiness, is in relationship with Krishna. So Krishna also says in the Bhagavad-gita, Purushaf prakriti stohi bhunkte prakriti jan gunan karanam guna sangosya sadasadyoni janmasu. That by association with the modes of material nature, the living entity who is situated in Prakriti, he enjoys or experiences the fruits of his actions and thus meets with good and bad in various species of life. So because we are trying to experience some kind of happiness in this world, because we're still searching for some kind of fulfillment in this world, we have to take birth again and again to fulfill, or to try to fulfill, to continue to try to fulfill these unfulfilled desires that we have to enjoy the material world. And so Krishna, through the material nature, at the time of our death, based on the momentum that we develop in this life from our previous lives, etc., through our karma, Krishna, through the material nature, gives us a particular set of senses, a particular body, through which to fulfill our desires. And we also hear that there's 8.4 million different species of life, some of them higher, some of them lower, based on the consciousness that one can have, or the capacity to understand this material world, higher topics, philosophy, etc., that is given with that particular body. So for example, animals are considered to be below birth, because animals can't really understand much of anything besides eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. And we see that this is really all animals are engaged in. You can't really have what to speak of any conversation with an animal. You can't have a philosophical conversation with an animal. You can't teach an animal philosophy. You can teach a dog, how to sit and roll over and, maybe do a little dance if you're a good trainer. But really, animals can't really know much. Just their brains, their particular bodily constitution just doesn't allow them to. And similarly with all other animals. And so we see animals all the time. They're engaged in, my family's dog, what he would do is he would go up to gopher holes, and he would stick his nose in. He would stick his nose in, and he would eat, the gopher stool that was in there. That's what he would do. So you'd see him, he'd go in the backyard and he'd stick his nose. So anyway, he's a dog. What can you do? It's abominable. It's disgusting. We understand that. But you can't really fault him, because he's a dog. So in a similar way, Krishna, through the material nature, also understands this. So animals, they're not punished for their sinful activities, just like this verse and purport are mentioning, that a tiger, he can go and kill a man, devour him, and he accrues no sinful activity, or no sinful reaction, because he doesn't know any better. It's just what he does. But a human being who has consciousness, who has a good birth, a human being who does the same activity, has the capacity to understand that such activities are wrong, that such activities cause suffering, like this verse was mentioning, that a human being knows what it's like to feel pain. A human being knows what it's like to feel distress. So if a human being knowingly inflicts pain, distress, fear in another living entity, then he'll be judged for it. He'll be punished for it, because he's violating the laws of God. So one might say, well, okay, yes, the human being does have the capacity to understand. He does have the brain substance to understand what's right, or at least has the capacity to understand what's right and what's wrong. There's the potential there. But, if he's born in a particular situation, or, it seems like what this verse is saying is that, well, he should just figure it out on his own. It's as if, because humans have the potential to understand what's wrong and right, that they should just be able to understand what's wrong and right. But we see practically that that's not really the case. That there's many people who are just completely in ignorance, human beings who are just completely in ignorance, who have no knowledge, and it seems like they won't really have a chance to get that knowledge in the particular situation that they're in. So what's the solution? This seems like a contradiction. This seems kind of unfair. But, as with most things in Krishna consciousness, Krishna gives the explanation. Srila Prabhupada gives the explanation. Very satisfying explanation. that the purpose of this Krishna consciousness movement is to provide a viable alternative to this present civilization. That the reason that this Krishna consciousness movement is here on this earth, the reason that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu started it, and the reason that it's still going on as a levy against the onslaught of Kali Yuga, is to give people, like there was in London, like one of the first traveling Sankirtan buses that they had, and it was a big orange bus, and then on the top it said, in big letters, it said the Hare Krishna movement, the positive alternative. So the Krishna consciousness movement, the Hare Krishna movement, is meant to be the positive alternative to a society which is not offering people real knowledge. Not only is it not offering people real knowledge, but it's actually offering people the opposite of real knowledge. It's offering people fake knowledge. It's offering people ignorance under the pretense of offering them knowledge. His Holiness Bhakti Vikas Swami Maharaj, my spiritual master, he has a lecture which is very appropriately, which is kind of about the subject, which is very appropriately titled, that this world is run by demons for demons. I don't know if this is just my generation, but anyway, there's this thing called Kids Bop. I don't know if maybe Saul probably knows what Kids Bop is. You know what Kids Bop is? You know what Kids?
Started actually.
Yeah, I'm sure it probably started. Yeah, it probably started in the 90s or something like that. But anyway, briefly, Kids Bop, what it was, what I guess it's probably still around. What it is that basically kids, they have like a group of kids, whatever, and then they like take songs that are popular in the current time, and they kind of like remix them, change the lyrics and stuff like that, so that they make them for kids. Like the song can be the most abominable, degraded song about, you know, sex and drugs, and, you know, but they'll change it to make it like a kid's song, you know, and it's really cheesy. But anyway, but then in all their commercials, their slogan was it's music which is made by kids for kids. So in a similar way, this world is created by demons for demons. And then you could say, okay, well, there's, you know, for demons. I mean, you know, you're educating these kids and they're innocent. Well, the idea is that if they're not demons already, we'll make them demons. Of course, that's not really consciously their motive most of the time. But just out of ignorance, people are educating children and adults too in various ways that they can just become demons, and just in ways that they can just create a completely horrible future for themselves by making sinful activity, making immoral activity the norm. And so, therefore, this civilization, Srila Prabhupada would always say, is completely doomed. And actually, in a lot of ways, you could say that not only is this civilization doomed to fail, but it actually already has failed. Just like when you have anyway, one of my services here used to be working in the garden. And what I learned by working in the garden is that if you don't water a plant, although it may not appear dead, dried out, still the plant could be dead. It could look very alive and green, but it could be dead still, and then eventually it'll just dry up. So in a similar way, this civilization, although it looks like it's flourishing, although it looks like it's doing very well, actually it's already failed. Because even if, you know, people are increasing material comforts, you know, medical science and all these different things, because they have an imbalance of values, because they think that I am this body and that sense gratification is the all in all, because they think that their civilization has already failed, because they're doing so many things already, and they'll continue to do practically anything for sense gratification. So many horrible, terrible things that they'll do for sense gratification. All because they think I am this body, and everything in relation to this body is mine. So, the purpose of the Krishna consciousness movement is to give, like I said, a viable, positive alternative to the society which is completely cutthroat. In this civilization, if you're struggling, which everybody's struggling, but if you can't make it, if you can't keep up to this completely unnatural standard of life on this horrible, insane, competitive society, then you failed. You won't make it. And practically your life is, and like we see, there's so many people who are actually out on the street right now who are homeless actually don't have to be. And in a normal society, they wouldn't be. But because this civilization is so competitive, so cutthroat, if anybody can't keep up even a little bit, then they're completely doomed. So Krishna gives the system by which all of these problems can be solved. Cātur-varṇyaṁ mayā sṛṣṭaṁ guṇa-karma-vibhāgaśaḥ tasya kartaram apimam vidya kartaram avyayam. Krishna says that according to the three modes of material nature and the work which is ascribed to them, or the work which is associated with them, the four divisions of human society, namely brāhmaṇas, kṣatriyas, vaiśyas, and śūdras, are created by me. And although I am the creator of this system, you should know that I am yet the non-doer, being unchangeable. So the system which is given by Krishna is the division of society according to one's inclination and one's work into four divisions: brāhmaṇas, or priests, kṣatriyas, or the administrative class, kings, warriors, etc., vaiśyas, mercantile men, and śūdras, laborers. So now, an objection somebody might give was, well, this, we've seen this before in India, the caste system. I know all about it. Basically, you're born into a certain family, and because you're born into a certain family, you live like a king, and because you're born into a certain family, everybody else can just step on you. And you're less than just because you're born in a certain family. No matter what you do, that's it. You're labeled for life. But that's not the system. The system is that according to one's guna and one's karma, so one's qualities, the qualities that one develops, which can change, and the work that one is engaged in. So for example, if one if one is born in a śūdra family, but he has the qualities of a brāhmana, and he's engaged in the work of a brāhmana, then how can he not be considered a brāhmana according to Krishna's standard, according to Krishna's definition of who's who? And so, yes, like this. And the only rule in varnashram is just do your duty. If you're a brāhmana, engage in the work of a brāhmana. If you're a kṣatriya, engage wholeheartedly in the work of a kṣatriya. And if you're a vaisya, engage in the work of a vaisya. And if you're a shudra, engage in the work of a shudra. It's not that somebody is, of course there is a bit of a hierarchy, but it's not that one should be judged or one should be ridiculed or criticized that, oh, this person's just a shudra or this person's just a vaisya. Everybody's where they're at. Everybody has a place in Varnasrama-dharma. Everybody's doing their duty. And in this way, Varnasrama-dharma, it gives a place where people, not just devotees, not just people who are in Krishna consciousness, but everybody, it gives everybody a place where they can engage according to their guna and karma, according to their inclination, and according to their qualities. So they're perfectly engaged in the work that they want and the work that they need, while also at the same time being in the association of devotees and being able to hear Krishna Katha regularly. So the Varnashram communities that Srila Prabhupada wanted to establish, they're not only for devotees. And in this way, Varnashram-dharma is actually real bridge preaching. Because the idea behind bridge preaching is that, okay, we'll build a bridge between Krishna consciousness and where people are at, and we'll meet in the middle and then eventually get people across the bridge. So Varnasrama-dharma is the perfect bridge preaching, because it engages people with where they're at, according to their guna and their karma, and then at the same time keeps them in the association of devotees, so that they can hear Krishna Katha every day, so that they can be gradually purified and eventually come to the standard of devotional service, to some extent. Whether it's in this life or whether it's in another life, that's not really the concern. Of course, best you do it in this life. But at least the potential is there, or the structure is there in place for these people's gradual purification. And even materially, actually, not just spiritually, even materially, Varnasrama-dharma gives, it's a much more peaceful environment than, these cities. The cities are so, Prabhupada to say, the cities are, it's like a manifestation of sex desire. I mean, they're completely rajasic, and people's minds, even just in the atmosphere of a city, they're completely disturbed. So if people can live in a peaceful environment, fresh air, nice, fresh food offered to Krishna, of course, without all the hustle and bustle of the city, just a peaceful environment, then people's consciousness will be elevated to the mode of goodness just naturally, just being in that environment. And it will be much, much easier for them to take to Krishna consciousness. My spiritual master, His Holiness Bhakti Maharaj, back in the 80s, before he took sannyas, Ilapati Das Brahmachari, he was preaching in Bangladesh. He was going like village to village, preaching in Bangladesh. And he recalls that, people living in those villages, because they weren't subjected to the horrible conditions which are, practically forced upon one if they're living in the modern world, because they have fresh air, because they have nice food, because they have, nice, good work. They're not just sitting down all day. Their bodies, even in old age, are very strong. Even though, he says, Bengalis are generally not very stout people. This is a generalization. No offense to all the Bengalis. Still, even people in their old age, they're very supple. And the people in the villages, they would, the elderly people, they would be engaging, they'd be sweeping, they would be milking the cows. Even some of them would still be working in the fields to some extent. Not because they had to, but because they had enough energy and they wanted to. And he tells this little pastime where there was one man, and anyway, this is his words, not mine, but he had a bit of his words, ferocious countenance. He looked a little, he looked like he had some heavy karma. Sometimes you can kind of tell by looking at someone. He looked like he had some heavy karma. And so he wanted to touch Maharaj's feet when he entered the village. Or at some point, when he was there. And so he was an older man. He was a very old man. But, he said, I don't know if I want to take this karma. So he said he ran away. But this very old man, he started running after him. And eventually, he was like, okay, he relented, because he realized, I'm not just going to be chased around by this old man in this village. It doesn't look very good. So he relented, and he said that this man, he was very surprised, because very old man. He fell at his feet, and with a very strong grip, he grabbed his ankles, and he put his head on his feet. So anyway, back to the main gist of the talk. Varnasrama-dharma provides a very peaceful environment, materially, to elevate people to the mode of goodness. It engages people according to their inclination, so that their minds are peaceful, and then it also provides them devotee association regularly, every single day, so that it's the perfect environment for them to engage in Krishna consciousness. And in this way, everybody, like I said, everybody has a place. So if you struggle in varṇāśrama-dharma, if you're struggling with Krishna consciousness, if you're not exactly ready to commit to the highest platform of Krishna consciousness, then your only business in varṇāśrama-dharma is just do your duty. Just be there, do your duty, engage in your prescribed duties according to your guṇa and karma, and then still, gradually you'll be purified. So struggle in Krishna consciousness, struggle in varṇāśrama-dharma is not failure. Of course, your progress will be a little slower, but still, varṇāśrama-dharma is that safety net. Varṇāśrama-dharma is what will prevent completely gross fall down. Even if one's not ready to commit fully to Krishna consciousness, then one has a place in varṇāśrama-dharma whereby they can be purified and eventually come to that state, whether in this life or in the next life or however, whenever one is ready. So this is why Srila Prabhupada always emphasized the importance of varṇāśrama-dharma. Srila Prabhupada said, I still, when he left, he said, I still have to complete 50% of my mission. So as much as Srila Prabhupada already did, which is a lot, spread Krishna consciousness all over the world, as much as he already did, he says he still has to do in relation to establishing varṇāśrama-dharma. So it's extremely, extremely, extremely important, varṇāśrama-dharma. And Srila Prabhupada, of course, has left it up to us to establish through his instructions. Of course, it's way, 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 1,000 times way easier said than done. But anyway, this is a little bit about the importance of varṇāśrama-dharma and why Srila Prabhupada emphasized it. So are there any questions or comments? Do we treat people?
My question about the hellish planets, if that's okay?
It's okay.
I'm just wondering about this interval between you're taken out of the body and put into hellish planets. This interval, how long does it last? Because I'm thinking about this question. Sometimes I meet people in book distribution who say that they have an out-of-body experience, a near-death experience. And some of them, they say that they feel completely undisturbed, completely peaceful.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering if, and I was asking people, what's your lifestyle, what do you do? And some of them eat meat, and they're sinful, live a sinful lifestyle. So I'm just wondering, why do they feel like this if they in actuality are supposed to, pay for their consequences and be, maybe shown a different picture that they're not.
That's one thing, yeah. It could be, likely is, just a hallucination. But also, I mean, even if you say it's not, even if the soul, or at least, you could say like, yeah, even if the... Yeah. But, yeah, I mean, yeah, like Balaram Prabhu was saying, people hallucinate many things. But also at the same time, even if you said, okay, the soul leaves the body for a time, it could also just not be their time to go. It could just be some kind of, fluke experience. I'm not sure. I don't want to speculate. But, we also do have many instances where people have out-of-body experiences, like, what's Prabhu's name? Anyway, there's one devotee in the congregation. Prakash. Yeah, not our Prakash. I mean, our Prakash, but not like the Prakash who comes here every day. Yeah, Mr. Prakash. So anyway, he was in a coma, right? Yeah, he was in a coma. And then at some point in the coma, he died for some time, And his wife was a devotee, but he wasn't really practicing so seriously. And he saw the Yamadutas. The Yamadutas came to him, and I think there was some description, like there was like, yeah, really. Anyway, what he said, he said, anyway, he was very afraid. He saw the Yamadutas. He said, please, my wife is a devotee, And then when he said that, then the Yamadutas left, and then now he's practicing. And then, of course. So anyway, people have different experiences. You know, who knows? Could just be a complete hallucination. But, you know, it could also just be maybe a little bit of special mercy, something like that. I'm not sure. I don't know. But those are my speculations. Sorry for not such a great answer.
You're talking about Varnasrama-dharma.
Yeah.
I feel, maybe you can help explain this, but I feel like, is it viable in American society with, I feel, American society is progressing in such a way that people don't even identify with gender anymore?
Yeah.
Like they don't identify as a man or a woman.
Yeah.
So how do you implement this into American society with it progressing in this way?
Yeah. So the idea is that Srila Prabhupada wanted specific communities where devotees live away, you know, from all this, and just live off the land, very simply. So while, yes, it will certainly be very, very difficult, the idea is that Srila Prabhupada was trying to establish a society away from this society. So, but I guess the question you're asking more than anything is how to convince people. How will people be convinced of, yeah. Well, it will be extremely difficult, for sure. It is very difficult to convince people of the viability of Varnasrama-dharma. And the thing is, not everybody will be convinced. There are certain people who will just never be convinced that it's possible or that it's something good. But there are people out there who will be. And so it's not necessarily our business to go out and convince everybody, but it's our business to go out and to find people and to present Krishna consciousness, to present Varnasrama-dharma, to present this alternative. And if people take to it by Krishna's, you know, grace, then they take to it. But like Srila Prabhupada said, you know, there's brāhmaṇas on every corner. We just have to go out and pick them up. So we're not necessarily interested in like arguing with people and trying to like, of course, we preach, but we're not necessarily trying to convert anybody who doesn't want to be converted, or try to convince anybody who doesn't want to be convinced, because factually there will be people who will just not be convinced, and that will likely be the majority of people. So the idea is that we want to have our ashram communities, have that alternative be there for those who want it, who will take to it. Keep vigorously preaching why it's good, but ultimately the results are up to Krishna. And we can't really, just by our, you know, endeavor, convince people that this is the best thing to do. Because you're right, this society is going south. You know, it's going all kinds of weird ways. And you can point that out to people, you know. That's another thing. I mean, we can try to point out to people, hey, this is weird. Like, this is completely not normal that people are thinking these things. People are having these philosophies, that society is going in this direction. Here's a better way. But like I said, there's a lot of people who won't be convinced by that. There's a lot of people who are seriously convinced that the way that our society is going now is the best way to go. So, is that a satisfying answer? Probably not.
Would you add something to that? What would you say?
Also, too, I feel like people don't even know where they stand in society. Like, how do you tell a person, like, or how do you even know where you even stand within that society? Because people have so many different propensities nowadays. Like, some people like to lead, but they also like to be in the kitchen and cook. And so where do you even fit within that and know what your duty is within that system?
Yeah, I mean, it basically, it comes down, I mean, yes, people have many different propensities, but most people will have one thing that they're good at or one thing that, or they'll kind of like, of course in Kali Yuga, generally we say in Kali Yuga everybody's a Shudra. But even that, like nobody's really one ashram or the other, or sorry, yeah, one varna or the other. But most people will have a general leaning in one direction. So we engage them in that direction and kind of cultivate that. That's my understanding. Like there's many people now, and I mean, and there is actually many people now who are like pretty definitely like you could say, okay, this person's just like a Shudra. Like they can't really do much else besides just like work under somebody, be told what to do. And that's fine. That's just their nature, you know. And similarly, there are people who are just really good with money, you know, who just like anything they touch just turns to gold, you know. So, you know, we take those people, and then also, but people who are kind of in the middle, you find some inclination, and you kind of like fan the spark, you know. Because either way, Varnasrama-dharma and Kali Yuga is going to be a little, it's not going to be the same necessarily. So, yeah, you just have to find a general tendency. Yeah. Yeah. Anything more?
This isn't a well fleshed out thought on that, but it just came to mind that because Vajramanjala was asking, or we're saying that there's like even like a material science of the varnas and the ashrams, which really help you even materially, and then from that kind of like calm or just kind of, you know, healthy, even like basic material platform, then you can hopefully be a little more peaceful and rise spiritually, or it'll be conducive to your spiritual development. And so we're saying that there's this science that you could kind of tap into, and it could benefit you, and it could benefit everyone around you. You know, this kind of varnashram system. And then the question is, okay, well, like we're saying that there's a science, and they don't even know the science of like gender identity, yeah. But I was thinking that just like right now in the modern world, there's like Ayurveda is popular, or it's kind of, there's like a rise in like people like taking to Ayurveda, and you could say, well, how is that? You know, they think that your body's completely like that your gender doesn't mean anything about like what you need or like anything about your body. But then Ayurveda is saying that like, oh, you know, if you're more pitta, if you're more kapha, if you're more this, if your body's more like, if you have like red hair, or if you have like, you know, green eyes, that's like an indication. And like there's like the Ayurveda is saying there's this system evaluating your body and seeing what's good for you. And you could say, okay, well, how are we going to convince people of that? You know, if they don't even, you know, if they're so far afield from that. But it seems that what's happened is that certain people have taken it up in the West, and then they've become, you know, it's a material science, and therefore they become materially better off, or they become more healthy, or whatever that they take to it, and they take it, and to the degree they take to it properly, it benefits them. And therefore they become some kind of, you know, symbol of health or something like that. They become more vibrant or something, and then they get a following. And then people think, okay, well, you know, I may not have total faith, but this person maybe seems to, and not everybody, but some people, and it seems like increasing number of people have seen, well, that looks like there may be something to that, because those people seem to be a little more balanced, or a little more healthy, or a little more something. And then they don't take it so seriously, but they look into it, and they may be like, you know, they can't quite evaluate their body even, like, you know, am I more fire, or more this, or more, you know, water, or this. But they do their best, and maybe to the degree they have success in doing that, you know, discerning their own position in that system, and they try it out, then maybe they'll see some benefit. And then therefore they may continue with it and try it more and more, and therefore it's kind of grown, despite the fact that many people who are trying to teach Ayurveda may teach it incorrectly, or they may be saying that, oh, I practice Ayurveda, but they don't, and therefore they're actually a bad example, because you look at them and you're like, well, you look like a mess. Or people try to take to it, but they misunderstand the science, and therefore they misapply it in their lives, and it doesn't help them, and then they think like, oh, well, this doesn't work, and they give it up. So despite all that going on, there's just been a general kind of increase in the interest in Ayurveda, because enough people have, you know, had some good effects from it. So it seems like Prabhupada said that, if we just develop farm communities, then people would, flock to them, and if we took care of them properly, if we were actually to walk the talk, as they say, on our farm communities, we would be happy in Krishna consciousness or even materially, and therefore people wouldn't help but appreciate that and see that. Therefore they just flock to us just because they'd see those people look like they're having a nice time. Those people look like it's working for them. They may not be sold on all of our philosophy at all, but they would see, well, hey, that seems kind of kooky, or maybe, but at least it seems like it's working for them. And so it seems that if for anything in Krishna consciousness, and certainly the varnashram thing, it seems to the degree that we practice it ourselves, then we'll become attractive representatives of it. But if we live in a farm community, but we're really on the internet the whole time, and we're not even, and we're staying up late and things like that, and we aren't really living simply, and everything's depending on, machines and things like that, then, we may make a nice brochure, but it may not attract people. We may not attract people because we aren't really experiencing. And same thing in Krishna consciousness. If I try to explain to people the bliss of chanting Hare Krishna, just chant some japa, it makes the biggest difference. But really, I'm chanting late at night while checking the news or something, or while driving, and I'm not really tapping into the bliss of chanting Hare Krishna myself, then I can only be so good a representative of it. I can be a representative of it. Yeah. But the real success, it seems, would come from me practicing it and then getting the benefit, and then people seeing that benefit, and then being attracted to that. Yeah. That's a thought.
Yeah, that's a nice point, yeah.
Yeah, like Mukunda Charan Prabhu was just saying, it's people, if there's... I'm going to sit here, I feel a little bit too far away. But if people see an example, such as a farm community, as you're saying that or as you're quoting Srila Prabhupada saying that people will flock to it, and that's human nature. If they see it's working for these people, it might work for me too. That was pretty much Prabhupada's main strategy in his spreading of Krishna consciousness. It was working for Prabhupada. Yeah. And people were seeing that, they see he's a special person, so I want to be like that. And even I was just thinking about this group here in San Diego, 7 tribes or 11 tribes or 12 tribes. How many tribes is it? 12? Okay. 12 tribes. They have their place there, and I don't know how many families live there. You know how many families live there? Rough estimate, 10, 20? You visited there, though, right?
Yeah, but I never
You didn't see any of the, you didn't see, how many, did you see how many house structures they had there?
I was looking at their gardens, they're kind of growing vegetables there.
Okay. Well, 12 Tribes it's a farm community here in San Diego, and they're say like followers of Christ. So that's what I'm referring to. I'm saying that they have a farm community here, and they've created the community, and people go there, and people live there, which, knowing the certain standards they have, of course, not everybody would go there, but some people are going there. So similarly, if we create farm communities, then people will go. Not everybody, but some people will go, and they become devotees and all that based on just the attractive principle of it. But it's a bit of endeavor. Like in America, I was gonna. Where's one example of our varnashram or farm community that's really thriving? Is there any example?
No.
Yeah, there's.
There are elements. There's elements that have to take care of a lot of cows or this and that.
Yeah, like New Vrindavan's there, Gita Nagari's there. But, I went to Gita Nagari, and, it's a great place. They're doing wonderful service there, and, I wish them all the best, and I hope it, increases and all that. I'm not trying to deprecate it at all. It's wonderful. It's just tough, because I went there, and it's like, a husband and the wife, I'm forgetting their names, and a few devotees, and that was it. The other devotees wanted to, do other things, and so it's a bit of a challenge, but anyways, but if we're able to do it, it'll be, it'll be very, beneficial.
Yeah. Anything else?
Once society collapses, we're going to pretty much be forced to move on to the next.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is kind of the same point, but I was just thinking that you were saying that, yeah, it's very difficult to convince these people. And then, of course, later on, then you said that, of course, we are exactly trying to convince them. Like, we aren't going to have like a 5-hour conversation. Said, you need varnāśrama, like, you're going to benefit from it. I swear, argue with them for five hours. But it seems like our program more is that to the degree that I actually, like I'm saying, how many devotees in ISKCON have managed to kind of take up the austerity of being satisfied on a farm community. I mean, of course, that's not like we're putting the blame on them, unlike devotees who haven't done it. But I mean, it seems like the greater challenge is convincing ourselves to do it, and then we don't have to convince anybody else, because we'll actually be, good representatives of it, vibrant representatives of Krishna consciousness, of varnāśrama communities, and that's like our greater challenge is for ourselves to become happy and satisfied in Krishna consciousness and in those farm communities. And then we don't have to convince. We don't have to we can just show up, or we just people can see us, and then some will become attracted.
Yeah, it's tough because people think, oh, this is too peaceful, This is boring. Like, what am I going to do with my time? What am I going to manage? Who am I going to manage? Because you could say, okay, we tilled the ground, we milked the cows. Now what? But if people aren't satisfied with Krishna consciousness, it becomes it's impossible actually. And you see, that's a lot of devotees flee from the farms, because they just can't handle it. They grew up in New York City and hearing the garbage truck and all these other things. And then them just out there hearing, birds and, what are they called? Crickets, Oh man, I got to get out of here. So it's like the, rajas, or the mode of passion. So yeah, like you're saying, devotees have to become convinced, because it's actually goes against the modern conditioning, So it's another point. But what would we say to somebody like that, Amogha, Lila, if they say, okay, you say, oh, we have a peaceful life out there, and milking the cow, doing everything, and what if everything was just arranged like that? Of course, it's a long ways away from that, and it's very theoretical, so it doesn't really. But let's say if someone was to move to such a place, what would you say? Well, what would you say about this? What about it's just too peaceful? It's boring. What would you say to that?
Well, do you have any thoughts?
That's what I was asking you.
I guess I can think of something.
I mean, even amongst devotees, it's like, just imagine, Varnāśrama was completely, just imagine, okay, of course, just imagine, but just imagine Varnāśrama was completely set up. Everything was just running well, right? And then even devotees having the experience of living in a city temple and, going out on like book distribution, right? Like the point of book distribution is what? To educate people. But what if everybody's all educated? What are the book distributors going to do? Milk the cow, chant Hare Krishna. Are they going to be satisfied with that? Sometimes I wonder, because, or the whole goal is, like Prabhupada even said sometimes, I'm racking my brain to come up with so many activities because you can't sit and chant Hare Krishna. So I have to rack my brain to so many things. So if a person could come to that point where, that's the problem with retirement, because people retire, everybody retires, but they think, what am I going to do? I've been busy with my whole life. So it's kind of like the same principle. What are people going to do? They're going to be bored.
I think there's a saying out there that people come for the content, but stay for the community, right? If you have the content and you're building upon that content, there's an interesting in Braja and my life, we're wedding photographers. We have a magazine where we built a community. In building that community, we started off with amazing content, which is what we have here. We have thousands and thousands of verses of amazing, amazing content. You create a community small. You have the content. You bring people into that environment where they're understanding, learning, living the content. Then what happens is, like Lila says, we have association, like we have here. You all are my friends. I appreciate your association. I ask you questions. I want to be a part of this community. And as you have that community, hey, guess what? I have this other friend. You got to come and see this guy, Amogha Lila, speak. You got to hear Amogha Lila chant. You got to hear Balaram give Saturday class. These are amazing things. You can create a community, and that's why people stay. There are communities out there called retirement homes, retirement facilities. We just went to a place called the Jonathan Club. That's a community. There are people who are like-minded, and that is the community you guys are building right now. Kṛṣṇa Lounge SB, you're building a community. You're wanting people to come for the content. They will stay for the community. So the boredom, it's not there anymore, right? People stay in this community because of the association that they build upon that. I come weekly, 3 times a week, in the mornings, in the evenings, and again in the mornings, 3 times because of the association here. It empowers me when I go back out into the real world that I carry everything that you guys tell me, talk to me about, teach me. I carry that with me throughout my day-to-day process. I get cut off in a car, I remember what people say, right? And these things help. So I always come back to this community. So that content over, coming for the content, staying for the community, I think will help. But maybe there's a thought that maybe it's not so much the farm. Maybe it's redefining the farm as a Krishna center or a podcast or things like that. Maybe it's another way to cultivate the message out there so that applies to people who are out there in the world, and it can move forward and people can understand that, and maybe they can have their own little ceremonies inside their homes where they're actively practicing. There are a lot of devotees that come to this temple who are actively practicing right now in their home, who are actively listening, watching on their devices, and practicing in their home. And maybe that's how they're staying connected to the community. Because we do all have this in our pockets every day. So I don't know if that's an interesting thought or if it's totally out of whack.
It's nice. What I was specifically, what I was thinking about, people come for content, stay for community. I was thinking about, I've never been there, but it is, I've heard about it and, talked with others about it and seen it to a degree, through pictures and this and that. But it seems to be going well. Shivaram Swami's project in Hungary, farm, Krishna Valley, and that they have a community there of devotees, and they're not leaving, they're not fleeing, they're all happily there. And from at least from my understanding, it seems that they're not bored and frustrated and look like very happy devotees. And because it's the community, that they've developed.
Right? You give people purpose and you give people something to connect upon a different level, where they find commonality. Sorry.
Another thing also I was thinking, sorry, did I interrupt you? Another thing also I was thinking, this is kind of just like a practical thing. Also in Nandagram, in Gujarat, a farm community, they do padayatra regularly. Of course, that's in India, so it's kind of easier to do padayatra in India. But that's another thing too, padayatra. Devotees are getting a little, cabin fever. Take a bullet cart out and hit the, Harinam. Because there will always be people to preach to outside of the farm communities, practically speaking. So
There are some very successful people who created farm communities. Raghunath is one. He created Super Soul Farm. That is a very successful community of people.
yeah, I also haven't seen pictures of it.
Raghunath?
Yeah, yes, I'm sure, right?
Tons. You should invite him. He was just here.
Super Soul Farm.
Super Soul Farm. It's an incredible place.
It's quite a
I mean, Eco Village is another. I mean, it's just, we went there when it was just starting.
Eco
But
Village?
now, Eco Village, it's
Really? How
incredible.
many years ago? 15?
4 or 5.
No, they're just like building.
They were
condos.
just building it out.
Oh,
They were just,
which Eco Village?
Varnasrama,
Oh, right, yeah.
where they were just kind of ending building out.
Oh, okay.
In Bhima took us, right? Bhima took us.
Over the last 10 years, it's kind of.
It's just, but that community over there is incredible, because there's so many programs for people that tap into every level of consciousness. If there's like a beginning Krishna consciousness, there's school for kids, there's a farm, there's advanced yoga classes, there's teacher trainings, there's all these things that are happening all at once. And so the mixture of all these people that are beginning to advance, they get to kind of like be together and learn. Like when I come here, I'm not advanced at all, but I come and listen to you and you're, or anybody who is more advanced, and that helps me, you know, in very small ways, because my progress is slow. But, okay, that's all I have to say.
Sure.
Sorry, I'm talking way too much.
No. Okay. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.